Hey class, this week's chapter, we're going to be talking about examining the world of work. All right, so chapter outline, determining and describing personal cultural factors, influences on career choices. There are tons that kind of go into this, examining how diversity affects the workforce, identifying how the change workplace affects your career choice, recognizing the role and trends of the career fitness profiler. So what jobs are hot right now and what jobs are maybe dying off or are just not hot, I guess. Analyzing job trends and projections. So that's really important, especially as you start to choose your major when you're in college. You might be in love with a specific major or job or career, but it might be very tight niche. So just understand it could take a good chunk of time to get into that role. So this one's really, really big. Family support. So societal influences on career choices, family support. So your family might support you. They might support you saying, hey, go to college full time, or they might say, hey, I'm going to pay for your college full time. And family could be, your biological family or close friends or, people that are close to you. But sometimes you don't have that luxury, and that is okay as well. Sometimes you might have to work full time for the family to help support the family, pay the mortgage, pay the utilities, etc. Or maybe you can't go to school full time because you need to help babysit your own child or your family's children or something like that. But family support is huge. So that's just something to really consider while attending college. And of course, enroll in your classes, because if you enroll in full time and you have to drop a bunch of classes, it could affect your financial aid. So social and cultural is really big as well. Family, peers, and feeling about yourself can also act as an obstacle. So maybe you don't believe in yourself or believe in yourself for that specific major. That will affect if you continue with it. I think if I believed in myself a little bit more at the time, I probably could have stuck with marine biology. But once I took a couple bio classes, I just thought it was too much. Now, was I studying as hard as I could have? Absolutely not. So I just essentially gave up on that. Your time for school might be affected. So there's different obstacles like I told you about. For me, it wasn't so much family, just other stuff going on. But I switched majors 6 times. I went to 4 different community colleges. So I had to understand and be comfortable with the idea that it took me 40 years to transfer to a 4-year college. Then I was able to finish up in 2 years, but that's because I took a crazy amount of colleges, like I stated last week. Again, maybe you're helping your family babysit or someone else babysit a close friend, or maybe it's your own baby. Again, working full time. We live in California. It's extremely, extremely expensive. Maybe you need to support your families in other ways. Maybe you need to take care of your parents or take care of your grandparents or someone else. And of course, the fun one, which is money to pay for college. College has increased a crazy amount. My dad was able to work part-time and go to Cal Poly at the same time and pay for college as he went and live on his own without taking any student loans out. That's a part-time job. Could you imagine working a part-time job and doing that now? There's absolutely no way that could be done, at least in California. Here's a couple examples from the book if you're following along. I'm too old, or perhaps it's too far along in school to start thinking about changing my career now. So maybe you are a criminal justice major and you wanted to be a police officer and you're all gung-ho about it, but come junior year, you take a couple classes in, let's say, film. You might say, hey, if I change my major to film, I'm going to have to take probably a year plus worth of courses. Am I too far along, or should I go ahead and do that? I would really like to be an engineer, but I've given up on it because I can't go to school full time and get that kind of degree. So with engineering, as you probably already guessed, there is a ton of math. I remember when I was working in the counseling office at Chafee, I sat down with a student and I literally planned out 7 semesters of math, which is almost 4 years of math for him to take before he could transfer to a 4-year college. He was really eager and I said, let's do it. And we planned out his roadmap, but he had to understand that it was going to take a long time to do the math, and he was comfortable with it. So it's been a couple of years. I hope he finished up. I don't know whether I'm going to apply for that job or not, besides they're not going to hire Latino. Maybe and we'll have a couple examples in this chapter from the book, but there's certain minority groups, whether that's female, maybe that's a culture or something like that, that just isn't very big on that specific major. So for example, and I think the book actually gives these examples, a woman as a firefighter. Could a woman be a firefighter? Absolutely. Is there a lot of women in firefighting? No, it's way down there. We'll find out what it is, but I want to say it's like 3% or less. This one has been coming up more, but still pretty low as far as men in the nursing field. And even in the counseling field. When I was in my master's program for counseling, out of 55 people, there was only 5 males. So it kind of says something. I'm not really qualified to do that kind of job, and my high school grades are weak. I was never good at schoolwork. So this is just me being real. I did not graduate from 8th grade. I almost did not graduate from high school. I was really that close. And if you're one of my students, I often show you my transcript. In fact, the highest grade I got in high school as a sophomore was a D. Was that because I was not capable? No, my work ethic was just not there, and I cared about doing pretty much everything else but school. So am I going to say that high school doesn't matter? Absolutely not. I think high school is great. I think it could help shape you for the rest of your life, and also it could help you with your work ethic and probably 1,000 other things. For me, going to community college was the best choice I made. My family needs me to work and help out with expenses. There's no way I could move away to go to college, and that's okay. If you're going to stay in this area, I think California has like 109 community colleges, 23 Cal States, which would be, Cal State San Bernardino, Cal Poly, Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State LA. There's 9 UCs, so UCR, UCI, UCLA. So, and that's not even counting privates as well. So we have easily over 400 colleges in California alone. So we just got to find which one is closest to you that has your specific major. You don't have to move across the country if you can't or do not want to. Sure, I'd like to go back to school, but how could I get all my housework done and who look after the kids? There's no money for childcare. Again, this is a tough one. And my wife and I, although I think we do fairly well, we still, every month we sit down and do a budget, and it takes a lot of work and concentration, but it's really important. And we'll talk more about budgeting money and Dave Ramsey and a few other things later in this course. So we kind of talked about her before, is the growth mindset. So how could we use the growth mindset in some of these examples? So again, if this was my typical in-person class, we'd break down into small groups and really discuss this and have a really good conversation. But with the growth mindset is huge. I really wish I had a growth mindset when I was a biology major, or marine biology major, I should say, because as soon as I hit a micro roadblock, I gave up. So I think with enough hard work and dedication, I could have finished that major. Now, do I love what I do now? Absolutely. But I really wish I had the growth mindset back then. Gender roles. So this is a big one. And I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm being real. How does gender roles affect your decision making? What are some jobs that you associate with a certain type of gender? So I hit on this earlier. I will tell you a brief little story about when I decided to go back to school for my master's. I was talking to my grandpa. He is he recently passed, but he was a very strong Latino man. I am half Mexican. And he said, counseling is for women. And I said, okay. And I'm so glad I continued and became a counselor because I absolutely love what I do. Again, what are some jobs associated with certain types of gender? Again, we talked about it with nursing and firefighting, for being a firefighter and counseling. Those are just some of a few. So these next slides we're going to be talking about are really important for the workforce because it helps, I guess, even the playing field to an extent. Talks about equity, not just equality. So example of equality would be me and somebody getting the same exact thing, even though I might have a dozen of those things and they might only have one. Is it fair that I get even more when I already have quite a bit? Where equity might say, hey, I have 3 jars and you have 2 jars. I'm going to give you a jar and you don't get any jars. That way it's 3 and 3. So that's probably a horrible explanation, but we'll talk about it later in this class. So over 40 years ago, female students seeking career advice from high school counselors, aka me, were frequently encouraged to choose fields such as teaching and nursing. These choices were recommended for both because they were women's jobs and because they fit best with the traditional female family roles of mothering, nurturing, and stuff like that. Yikes. I'm so glad we don't do that anymore. So equity, oh, I totally forgot. Anyways, there's a couple different definitions we're going to be going through. So affirmative action programs, policies, or procedures that attempts to overcome the effects of the past discrimination, bias, and or stereotypes. So again, when there is a system that's been brought forth for 50, 60, 70, 100, 200 years, that's so ingrained in our society, affirmative action does its best to kind of even the playing field and get away from those dominant discourses. Ageism, any action or policy that discriminates on the basis of age, affecting employment, advancement, privileges, or rewards. So if you are applying for a job or a career, it cannot say date of birth. Now, it could say, what year did you graduate high school? And then they'll probably say you're roughly 17 or 18, and that's how they're going to do it. But they cannot specifically say how old you are. That is against the law. If they do that, then you can technically sue, especially in California. Americans with Disability Acts, Americans with Disabilities. So this one's really, really significant. I won't read for the whole thing. If you want, you could pause it. But it offers reasonable accommodations for workers with physical or mental impairments. So what might this mean? Perhaps I am disabled and I cannot walk, and I am in a wheelchair. There should be some type of ramp or elevator or something for me to get from point A to point B effectively and efficiently. So again, that is an example of a physical or mental. Might be perhaps it takes me a little bit longer to complete a task. I should be assigned things at work that accommodate my needs and things I could do in a timely manner that's not going to like stress me or hold me to the same standards as somebody else. Barriers, so when you think of this, think of like a wall, right? Something to keep something in or something out. So anything that prevents a person from equal access to using goods, services, and facilities, and so on. There are physical barriers, like, again, like a wall, but there are also other barriers such as stereotypes that are super prevalent in our society. So again, it doesn't have to be a physical wall, but I like to think of a physical wall because it makes me think it's something that is put there, that is solid, that is trying to stop something or someone from getting in and out. Discrimination, again, huge no-no. Don't do it, and hopefully it hasn't happened to you. Practices, procedures, and policies that are specifically prohibited by law. Again, law. So it means if they break it, they get in trouble, you could sue, etc. The actions that limit or denies a person or group of persons opportunities, privileges, roles, or rewards on such prohibited base of their sex, race, age, and so on. So again, if you are a specific minority group, if you're a specific sex, if you're a specific gender, if you are a specific age, these are things that they cannot and should not take into consideration for a role at work, whether that's being hired, whether that's a raise, whether that's a different position, whether that's a transfer, etc. And if they do, it's not good for them. Gender bias and attitude or behavior that reflects adversity on a person or group because of their gender, but may not be covered under present legislation. So what this is saying is, it's obviously a bias, but there's a law that's not put in just yet. Results from the assumption of one sex is inferior to others. So again, if you are sexist or gender biased, then not good. Gender fair, practices or behaviors that treat males and females similar may implement separate but equal. Okay, we're different. I can clearly see that you associate yourself as a gender, which that's male or female, and I am X, Y, or Z, and we are different, but we should be able to complete the same tasks. Again, gender roles, that is just society. Society over a long period of time saying something that that you should or should not do. So again, gender roles, social behaviors that is prescribed and defined for males and females according to the tradition. So it has nothing to do with your biological differences. So again, like a gender role might be, the guys take out the trash and do the yard work, and the girls, the females do the dishes, which is a lie, because I do the dishes and take out the trash and do the lawn and the laundry. But those are just because I like to do those things. Genetic information. So again, prohibits discrimination based on genetic information. Traditional job, working in the field of occupation, typically around 75% of more of the opposite gender. Nursing, again, 8% for males. Construction worker, 2.5% for females. Sexism, hopefully, again, I truly hope that you have not experienced any of these in your lives, but it's important that we talk about them because they could come up in a line of work or in society or something like that. So it's better to be prepared. It's better to have this knowledge just in case. So sexism, any attitude, action, or institution that subordinates and assign roles to a person or group of persons based on gender. Sexism may be individual, culture, or institutional. So again, what it's saying is, if I'm an employer and I have two employees and one is a female and one is a male, I shouldn't say, you are a male and you go do this, and you are a female and you go do this. It should be, here's some stuff that we need to get done. Who, maybe they could assign it, but it shouldn't be based on the sex of the individual. A lot of times I just say, hey, who wants to do this? Who wants to do this? Okay, do it. So here's a couple more. So it might be a little blurry for you. So I'll just grab one. Electrician is 1.5% female. That is crazy. Carpenter, 1.9%. Firefighter, 4.2% female. Civil engineer, 13%. So what's saying, out of 100 people, you're only going to have 1.5 individuals that are electricians are female. Kind of crazy if you think about it. So these are just some of them. Dentist, 22% male. Wow. Food for thought. Okay, so earning money is kind of important, right? And these are directly from your book. So it talks about earning employment rates by education. So doctoral degree, obviously you're going to probably make the most. Professional degree, which would be, it could be a doctorate degree, like a working doctorate degree. Or it could also be some type of like officer or something like that. The law, master's degree, but as you can see, less than high school is pretty low. And if you're going to be living in California, it's going to be extremely rough for you. So this talks about global economy. A decade ago, the United States was the big dog, essentially, generated the most of the world's technology. Today, the future has diminished global competition, and is it just essentially what it's saying is we used to build all the chips. We used to do make all the computer stuff. We used to build all this stuff, but there's so many outsourcing, which means we went to different countries because it's cheaper to produce, such as China, India, etc., that we lost a lot of business and a lot of jobs doing that. And I don't know if any of you have traveled before. I personally love to travel, but it also it's something to think about if you have traveled, how many people you run into that are bilingual or even more. So when I was in Greece over the summer, or I'd say last summer, one of our waiters spoke 5 languages. You know, if you haven't noticed, sometimes I it's hard for me to speak English, so it's just like it kind of blows your mind. Anyways, that is going to be it. There's one more slide, but you can go ahead and pause this if you want to. It talks about job growth, but we're going to be covering that quite a bit throughout this class. If you guys have any questions, as always, please feel to reach out. I'm going to be here for you guys. Stay safe. All right, talk to you in the next video.